Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, July 29th, for the Anderson Report. I am Tim the Source Anderson. This is my YouTube channel, The Anderson Report. This is also being broadcast on Periscope. My Periscope is TJ Anderson 12, and my Twitter handle is TJ Anderson 1. So there are 2 days left in the month of July. A very long month, even with the partial July 4th holiday early in the month. There's been quite a bit of stock market action, most of it constructive and to the upside. And we will take a look at a little bit of what happened today and where we stand on the month with a couple of days to go. So, the after going back and forth, gains on Monday, losses on Tuesday. I think some people were maybe a little bit nervous coming into today, but the market had a very constructive day. The averages were up, and the breadth of the market was even stronger than what we saw with the major market averages. The Dow was up 0.6%. It's going out at 26,539. It's up 2.8% month to date. So the S&P had a very good day after testing and holding the 3,200 level a couple of times. We've talked about that early June high for the S&P of 3233. It's failed to hold that a couple of times, but it's always held 3,200. It was up 1.25% today. The S&P 500 is up 5.1% for the month. 2 days to go. NASDAQ had a good day also. NASDAQ was up 1.3% today, up 4.8% for the month. The NASDAQ is just above 10,500. Remember the old kind of the dual intraday highs for NASDAQ from June. I'm going to say from July 13th, and then again from about 10 days later. Not 10 days later, but a few days later was 10,800, 10,820. So we're at 10,543. The NASDAQ's up 4.8% on the month. The Russell 2000 was the standout performer today. It closed above 1,500 for the first time since June 8th. It was up 2.1%. It closed at 1500 spot 62. Talk about a squeaker on that one. The Russell 2000 is up 4% month to date. A very strong move for the Russell today. It has now held its 200-day moving average for 2 weeks and a couple of days. So one thing that was very interesting today is that during the last hour of the day. Now, yesterday we did not do a show yesterday. I had a lot of things going on yesterday, but the market was kind of just marginally lower until the last hour of the day. And I would say 3/4 of the losses yesterday when the Dow was down 200 points and other indexes were down maybe a little bit less on a percentage basis, pretty much giving up what they gained on Monday. Almost all of that came in the last hour. So we were watching the last hour today very carefully. The only thing I really saw, hey, Neil, thank you. Yes, John, Kodak. I'm going to mention Kodak. I've got Kodak written down here somewhere. Insanity in Kodak today. So the only thing I saw interesting in the last hour was that the S&P seemed to outperform the NASDAQ a little bit. And it might have had something to do that you had this big testimony on Capitol Hill today with the House Select Committee And so you had the chiefs from Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, but they were all testifying digitally. They didn't have to feel the heat of actually being there in the room. And I didn't see every single minute of it, but I thought that the highlight of what I saw had to be when the CEO from Google, Sundar Pichai, bold-faced lied 2 or 3 times to Republican questioners that Google has nothing in their algorithms and does not allow their algorithms to slant against conservatives in any way. I mean, it is just such an outrageous, bold-faced lie. If anyone else would say it, I mean, you would expect criminal referrals for lying to Congress. I doubt that that would happen in this case, but the evidence that what he's saying is just nowhere near reality is just endless. I mean, all you would have to do is just Google Donald Trump, or Google Benghazi, or Google uh, 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 Charleston, or Google any controversial event that's happened, or Google the Republican Party in California. Very famously, going into the 2018 midterms, if you Googled the Republican Party in California, it brought up Nazi images. So um, I just thought that that was astounding. Um, and I just wonder to what degree their testimony had anything to do with the Nasdaq, not by an extreme measure, but by, I noticed it, out underperforming the S&P during the last hour of the day. I think the Nasdaq was up like well over 1.5%. It closed up 1.3%. The S&P was up a little over 1%. It closed up 1.25%. Not an astronomical amount, but to me it was noticeable. The only other takeaways I had was that Tim Cook, the Apple CEO of Apple, is clearly the adult in the room, just at a different level than the other 3 people. Um, if if Jack Dorsey had been there, it would even have been more a glaring uh, differential. I thought that Bezos just, of course, he was there, remotely. I just thought he had a very different look than what you usually see from Jeff Bezos when he's on camera or when he's photographed. Maybe it was the lighting. I just thought he had a very different look than every other little snippet I've seen of him over the last couple of years. Um, and you know what? Facebook reported earnings after the close. I did not check what they were. We're going to have to wait on those. I apologize. But we mentioned the market averages. Now, when I said the broad market far outperformed the averages, the advanced decline at the New York Stock Exchange was positive by a margin of over 4-1. That's a strong day. That's a very strong day. And that reinforces the Russell 2000 being up 2.1% on the day and closing above the 1500 threshold. Um, Now, on NASDAQ, the advanced declines were positive by a little bit better than 2-1. And another thing I'll mention, and I only kind of hesitate to mention it because I really don't like the VIX contract. Although it is a volatility, it's really a bullish bearish sentiment indicator, or it's really an idea of how many professionals are betting on a decline in the market, either big time retail traders or hedge funds or other people that would trade the VIX. The only reason I say I hate to mention it is because it's a terrible product for your average retail investor who thinks he wants to be a day trader or a short-term trader to trade. It has different characteristics than a lot of other ETFs or tradable things that are related to indexes. It is the CBOE Volatility Index, but it closed at 2410, the lowest close since this whole uh, coronavirus sell off began in February. I'm not sure if it's the lowest close for the year or not, but it closed at 2410. Even though the Dow is 1,000 points from its June high, the S&P is a little bit below its June high. It's June, a little bit above its June high. The Russell is still maybe about, I think the Russell went out at 1,500. I think it traded 1,540 or 50. So it's still got about 3.5% to go, 4% to go, maybe. Um, but let's watch the VIX the next couple of days. The lowest close we've had, even versus the June highs, when I think the close was like 2450 something. I don't like I don't like to see people trade the VIX. There's a tremendous amount of embedded premium in it that erodes night after night. It has a different expiration than all option contracts, and I think there's way too many people trading the VIX that aren't professional enough to have done the work to look into what it really represents and think about what makes it go up and down. Okay, crude oil. Crude oil had was basically up a little bit, 41.28. Had held just a few pennies above the 41 level last night. Still positive to see crude oil holding that 41 level, and the energy sector, we'll get to the sectors in a minute, of the S&P 500 up 2% today. It's a pretty good move. Tomorrow's Thursday. We get earnings from Exxon and Chevron Friday morning. Gold was up 1%, $19.64. Not, I mean, 19, I'm looking at an ETF. $1,964. Gold up 1%, about 20 bucks. Silver up just a little bit. Silver has had a wildly volatile days. That's right. We did not do a show yesterday. So we did the show on Monday. I talked about silver trading at all-time highs. Gold had closed at an all-time high on Monday. Before we went on the show, just before 7 o'clock, silver had creeped up toward 25 after closing at 24 and a half. By 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, silver had traded up to $26. Then about 3 or 4 hours later, silver went down and traded at $23. So there was some type of somebody got a signal or somewhere that silver had hit a sell indication for them, and they sold it in the middle of the night when I don't know what the liquidity was like on an hour-to-hour basis, but it went down from 26 bucks to almost 23 bucks. Recovered by the early morning. It was more like 20, a little bit above 24, 20, traded up to 25. And it's still got quite a bit of volatility in it. Even today, silver traded between 23.75 and 25. A lot more. If you're trading silver, just be aware it's got a lot of intraday volatility right now. Okay. John, EIA report came out, increase in gasoline, increase in distillate, increase in refinery inputs, crude exports. Yeah, and I did not jot that down, but it clearly didn't have a big impact on the commodity today. I'm wondering if there were some positive comments on the sector or not, because energy was up 2%. A couple of other sectors that were standout performers. Financials were up 2%. Financials have kind of underperformed a lot of the last week and a half. So we'll see. We'll see if financials can follow through on that into the end of the month. Infotech up 1.5%. Industrials up 1.5%. A good mix there between three key cyclical parts of the market: energy, financials, industrials, and then also back to infotech, NASDAQ, that's your internet traffic trade. A very broad based rally today. Although, if you were just looking at the Dow, you didn't really see it. The S&P and NASDAQ up well over 1%, the Russell up 2%. Now, there were some pretty significant earnings either yesterday, which probably yesterday. Advanced Micro Devices had a big breakout in June, and they were up 12% today. I don't have the details on their earnings, but this is the hot stock in the semiconductor field. I've mentioned it a couple of times. I certainly wouldn't advise buying anything that's rallied as hard as it has from over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 days. But it's certainly worth watching. It is the leader of the sector right now. Advanced Micro Devices up $76, up 12.5% today. Now, Boeing had their earnings early today. They missed quite a bit on earnings. They missed on revenues. The stock actually opened up kind of unch to a little bit better, and then drifted lower most of the day, down a little bit less than 3%. Went out at about $166. Boeing, it just has a lot of issues. It's going to be a big, long haul for them to turn this around. They've got big orders pending from a lot of places around the globe that now want to pay their penalty and not take delivery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've still got to get the 737 MAX back online. It's just going to be tough for Boeing to get back in a leadership position. I would say before the end of the year, although they get approval on that 737 MAX, that'll be a positive for the stock. I just don't know what to say about it other than that. Starbucks reported earnings, and their revenues were down less than what we'd seen from a lot of others. Their revenues, I believe, were down about 23, 24%, almost similar to what Coca-Cola's revenues were down. They were hit very hard, obviously, by the total shutdown from the coronavirus. The revenue is only down 23, 24%. It doesn't sound too bad to me. I think they also made a statement that they're going to have at least 1,000 Starbuckses ready and much more equipped to do drive-through or curbside pickup. I think they didn't have that many that could do that when all this started, but they announced that I think the big thing that got the stock going is that they made some positive comments about how many of them they're going to have ready to service people without even walking in the door in a relatively short period of time. So Starbucks was up 3.5% today. It's something to keep a close eye on going forward. So what else did we have today? Obviously, there was a Fed meeting today, and there wasn't a tremendous amount of drama going into it because everybody knew that they were going to leave interest rates basically unchanged, just a tick above zero at 0.1%. It was all going to be in what they had to say. And other than they extended a couple of technical repo facilities that they have. They extended a couple of other lending facilitation facilities that they have. And I thought that Powell made some very well stated comments, very similar to other things he has said in the last couple of weeks, that forecasting the economy going forward right now is very difficult for them to do because they feel that it all hinges, or a tremendous amount of the variables, on how rapidly the economy is going to really pick up is based on beating the virus. Okay. If you beat the virus and you can get businesses back online, the economy is going to pick up. It obviously had this first big move up, which we saw with big bumps, double-digit increases in retail sales, double-digit increases in durable goods orders in May, high single digits for both of those in June, and now we got to take it to the next level. His caution, and he's always going to give you the cautious side and then the optimistic side, or the potential downside and the potential upside. The cautious side is that we just don't know. It's obviously impossible to forecast how soon a vaccine might come, and it's hard to tell how much the virus might just kind of fade away a little bit and get itself under control. He mentioned that we had reversed about a third of the job losses and about a half of the spending that we had lost during the shutdown. But virus cases had accelerated in June, and that complicates the outlook for July and the third quarter. I think the third quarter will be up. A lot of people were looking for a very, very strong third quarter of up 20%. That may have to be just tapped down a little bit. He basically feels that the pace of the recovery has slowed a little bit, and the increase and adding to the job market has slowed a little bit. I would say that those are probably very accurate observations. He's got obviously tons of data coming at him that is not all of which is publicly disseminated. Now, speaking of the economy, we will get the first look at Q2 GDP tomorrow. And the forecasts for that are all over the board. Anywhere from down 15% to down in the high 40s, maybe even 50%. The consensus, although it's from a very wide range, is for down 35%. I just get the feeling it's going to be a little bit less than that. Okay? You've had a lot of reports from a lot of bellwether companies of revenues down in the high 20s to 30, 31%. I mentioned this. I see down 29% from American Express. I see down 29% in revenues from Hasbro. Coca-Cola and Starbucks were each down maybe 23, 24%. Clearly, you could still buy Coca-Cola at the stores. Grocery stores, you could probably still get Starbucks's if you, for all but maybe 2 to 3 weeks of the worst of it. But I think that we're probably going to come in between down 25 and down 30. Anywhere from the middle to slightly the higher end of that, if you wanted me to fine tune it. But it's going to be subject to revision, and it will be revised. But there's no doubt that GDP tomorrow will get a tremendous amount of attention from everybody in the market. Okay, now John had mentioned Kodak. Kodak seemed to have found lightning in a bottle a little bit. And I had a note on it. And of course, I can't find it. And the symbol is KODK. It used to be EK, Eastman Kodak. KODK, I think. I believe it still trades on the New York Stock Exchange. And it had been a, $2 or $3 stock. Clearly, the legacy camera business died a decade or more ago. They never really made a rapid enough transition to digital cameras when they came on the scene. And they horribly missed that product transition. But now they have some type of technological capability with a lot of the chemicals that go into all the stuff they used to use for print photography that they have. And I'll be honest with you, I was really out of pocket for about a day and a half. I don't have all the details of it, but clearly they got a big potential contract with either the government or a group of people working for the government that are potentially doing a vaccine and or some work on a cure for the remedy for the virus. And the stock is up. What is it? Up from like John, is it up from like 3 to like 35 or something like that? Up 318%. Yeah. So look, this is a little bit of catching lightning in a bottle, but uh, that's a 1 day big move on very positive headlines from a stock that was trading in the sub basement level for a long time. It'll be very interesting to see how long Kodak might be able to hold that big price move that it's had, and whether or not what they're doing really turns into anything substantial. So, um, just maybe one or two other items. So, when we're looking at the economy tomorrow, you're going to have the positive side of it is obviously the technology stocks that are leading the internet traffic trade and all of the suppliers to their businesses that help them, that are involved, that are embedded in their supply lines. For an example, a couple of weeks ago, Texas Instruments reported revenues down 11.5% for Q2. Now, Texas Instruments is a semiconductor manufacturer. They don't have quite the cachet that AMD does right now, but they're a very, very, very solid company. Obviously, a big blue chip, old line semiconductor manufacturer that has adapted to the new world order as the product cycles have changed in that industry, and they changed pretty quick in Silicon Valley. And Texas Instruments is not just a survivor, but they're a very solid operator. So that would be kind of like maybe the positive side. Now, GDP is going to be down a lot more than 11%. On the other hand, when United Airlines reported their revenues for the second quarter, uh, close to 3 weeks ago now, their revenues for the second quarter were down 87%. That's like the worst of the worst. Okay. We've seen a lot of revenues down, some consumer product companies, some companies that, are somewhere in that consumer area, but you still got to get out of your house to go get the stuff, most of it down, even American Express, which it doesn't matter what you're buying, but you're using their card, also exposed to travel and exposed to business travel, but a very good barometer for consumer and business spending. Their revenues for the second quarter down 29%. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I would watch that down 27 to down 30 level uh, for GDP tomorrow. And then particularly the breakdown of what they say about different sectors of the economy. Now, that being said, and even though, I mean, Powell had some cautious comments today, um, he, and you got to realize that Powell, being not a PhD trained economist that has worked at a Fed research facility his entire career, or that has been a career academician in economics, toggling back and forth between a consulting group teaching economics at a very high level at a university, and then maybe also speaking a little bit on strategy. Um, he was a real world business guy, worked with a big private equity firm at a high level for a long time in the industrial sector of that private equity group. And he has, although he's been with the Fed for, I'm going to say 12 to 15 years, he still has a lot of very, very legitimate contacts at a high level in industry. So he's not making any bold predictions, but I think he's spot on in what he's pointing out as the real flashpoint for getting the economy to take this next level up. And that is, you got to beat the virus. And the reason you got to beat the virus is because you got to get comfortable. You got to get businesses willing to go beyond 25 to 50% capacity. You got to get people that feel that they're going to be a lot more productive working in their business environment with their colleagues than working from home. You got to get people comfortable feeling that they can travel again. They can go out and live normal parts of their life where they're around a lot of other people a lot more. Um, so until we beat the virus or until the virus goes away, and we get either a uh, widely acknowledged cure and or a vaccine, uh, it's going to be tough for us to get past that 50 to 60% threshold of the economy getting back to um, a properly operating economy. Okay, so where does that leave us? Well, look, the GDP number will get sliced and diced a lot of ways tomorrow. We got big earnings tomorrow night. Big earnings tomorrow night from Amazon, Facebook. Facebook reported tonight, I think, actually. Amazon, Apple, and Google tomorrow night. And the NASDAQ has been, 10,400 to 10,800, holding that move above 10,000. But I'm sure some people that have some outsized gains in the big momentum stocks in NASDAQ have been taking some well deserved profits. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, they should. But to get we get a we get decent earnings and decent feel, some upbeat comments from these companies, uh, and the right market reaction might be skewed a little bit by the last. The market reaction will really be on the last day of the month. Uh, but we're going into August next week. Um, Nasdaq has to either go down and make a serious test of 10,000 or continue to consolidate these gains of the last 3 or 4 months, really, before it can think about going to an even higher level. I don't think I have a whole lot more. I was going to do a big thing on this company, Nikola, the all electric truck manufacturer that became a public company in early June. It didn't really do. What time is it? It's 7:35. I'll do this real quick because there were a number of headlines on it today. NKLA is a symbol. Nikola, it got a lot of fanfare because it didn't really do an IPO. It kind of became a public company through doing a reverse merger with a company called Vector IQ, which is actually a SPAC, a special interest acquisition company. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to. So Vector IQ was a SPAC. This is this new phenomena in the market where somebody says, look, I'm going to raise $3 billion. Probably not quite that much. I'm going to raise $1 billion Bill Ackman did this a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what I'm going to spend it on yet, but I'm a brilliant guy, and I'm going to create this thing called it's a special interest, special purpose acquisition corp. When I come across like the next big thing, I'm going to buy it before anybody else gets a chance to buy it. And you'll make them a lot of money. It's basically the investors are just doing a total faith walk on the guy who's running the deal. Now, I don't know who the principals were yet in Vector IQ, but Nikola did a um, reverse merger with them where they were kind of acquired by them, but then the stock symbol became NKLA and it started trading at like a little over $31. I think let me take that back here. The opening trade in Nikola was $37.50, but they didn't do an IPO. They did not sell new stock to public investors. What they did was they had, if you were Vector IQ, you ended up with 7% of the new company. If you were Nikola NKLA, and there were a lot of private investors, and a lot of people held private stock in Nikola, okay, you ended up with 80% of the company. So the stock opened in the mid 30s, traded mid 30s for a couple days, and then shot up to $73 in one day, pulled back quite a bit, got up very high again about 2 weeks later. Tremendous amount of fanfare on the company. And hello, McLiberty. Tremendous amount of fanfare on Nikola. But they do not have $1 in sales. They haven't even started producing a vehicle yet. So now all the people that own private stock have been registering their stock with the SEC to sell more of their stock now that it's a publicly traded company. After trading as high as $73, I believe Nikola right now is down 70% from its all-time high, trading in the low 30s, 31 and a half. The public float in Nikola right now is 5 times what it was 2 or 3 days after they did their reverse merger, because so many people that have had restricted stock or insider stock where the restriction has come off have now filed with the SEC to potentially sell that, either in some type of a block transaction or a secondary if the company were to do one, or they could potentially just sell it in the open market. And I believe the company announced, I got onto this halfway through the day, so I'm going to get some more details on it. I believe the company had just recently announced a deal where they're selling warrants potentially with a convertible issue or with stock. I have to look into that a little bit more. It's one of, and because the fact that millennials are naturally going to be interested in a company like this, it's one of the most active stocks on the Robinhood platform. Again, I am not a registered analyst. I'm restricted to not really commenting on whether people should buy or sell stocks. I just feel that this is a situation to completely avoid. Down the road, if they get, to the point where they've started production, where they have some sales, where they have some prototypes that people can actually get behind the wheel of and drive, or some other people that have, real experience in the field can opine on it. We'll see. but they have not produced a product. They do not have a dollar of revenue. So, stock 70% off its highs. There's a lot more public stock that's going to come to market over the next months, if not weeks. I just think it's a complete avoid. It's one of these things that is probably not going to end real well. Okay, so we got to watch gold as it continues to creep higher. It was up 1% today, $1,965, $35 from 2000. Silver's got wild volatility to it intraday. If you're trading the SLV ETF or the silver futures, be very careful. And with the market doing what it's doing, despite the fact that the virus is still a real issue, the market seems to be saying, yeah, we know it's an issue, but we're looking out 3 to 4 months from now. All right. That's kind of all I've got. Tomorrow we'll talk about where we are one day to go before the end of the month. And of course, we'll talk about GDP a little bit and big earnings tomorrow night from Apple, Amazon, Google. All right. Have a good night, everyone. And we will talk to you tomorrow.